Sri Lanka is a tiny island nation off the southern coast of India. It is home to oodles of elephants, timeless ruins, and a number of other undiscovered natural wonders. Yet this outer beauty has masked the deeply rooted internal conflicts amongst its people. Let's first talk about the major players in this conflict. A majority of the people identify as Buddhist Sinhalese, living in about 2/3 of the southern land region. The opposing group are the Hindu Tamils, who occupy a very small portion of the north, and some indigenous Tamils live within the land of the enemy. This conflict began to sprout before Sri Lanka was granted independence by the British. The Sinhalese felt discriminated against by their British rulers, leading to the development of Sinhalese political nationalism. In the late 1940s, the last of the Indian peacekeeping forces left Sri Lanka, giving it its independence. After independence was granted, the Tamils migrated to Sri Lanka from India. At that time, the Sinhalese took control of the government, which sparked political conflict with the Hindu Tamils, or the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. The Sinhalese government passed many acts suppressing the Tamil minority. Into the 1950s, the Sinhalese government passed more acts that cut out the Tamils completely from government. These restrictive acts made the Tamils more furious and began to riot. These riots continued with thousands of Tamils dying and being displaced. Then, in 1981, a Sinhalese policeman was accused of burning down a public library, further strengthening the resentment between the Tamils and Sinhalese, which sparked the eruption of civil war within the country. In this war, India supported the Tamil Tigers, making this an international conflict, with India sending supplies to the Tigers. The war raged from the 1990s all the way up to the early 2000s, with many dying on both sides. This conflict led to many economic repercussions, with many Sinhalese losing their plantation and factory jobs. This then led to a large amount of unemployment, which led to looting and vandalism. This instability then led to a huge loss of foreign investment. Due to the violence and cultural unrest, large amounts of Tamil refugees fled to India to escape the Sinhalese army. It is estimated that about 65,000 Tamil refugees still remain in India today. In 2002, a ceasefire was signed, and it seemed as if peace could be close. But in less than a year, the Tigers pulled out of the peace talks, and in 2004, they began suicide bombing. Attacks continued and even began to escalate in 2006, with the Sinhalese still attempting to push through peace talks with the Tamils. In 2009, international concerns about the civilians in the battle zone began to rise, and there was a call for ceasefire, which the government rejected. Finally, in 2009, the government stated that the war had finally ended and a rigged democratic election was held. Still, there was a large amount of tension between the Tamil and Sinhalese, with many of the Tamils trying to fight the elections. After these so-called democratic elections, the Tigers were still left out without any say in government. To this day, the UN has been calling for the Sri Lankan government to do an investigation into the alleged war crimes that occurred during the Civil War. But the government has not conducted such an investigation and has even blocked a UN team from entering Sri Lanka. These long-lasting tensions led to a brutal civil war in the late 20th century, resulting in economic and political tension that even oodles of elephants can't solve.